Hey, you guys, thanks for listening into this episode of Tips with T. On today, I have Miss Khara with us. Hey, Miss Khara, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm doing awesome. So thank you so much for being a guest on the show. Tell us more about yourself and what you do.
Yeah, so I'm a mental health and financial therapist here in Denver, Colorado. I've been doing the mental health therapy for about 10 years and just started on the financial therapy piece, which has been super exciting and is a great bridge between the two populations I serve. So I serve other clinicians and then I also serve entrepreneurs or small business owners. So financial therapy helps them all have a better relationship with their money. I'm excited to talk about it.
Awesome, awesome. So what is financial behavior to you? I'm glad you said that you're mental health and financial, you does things with financial as well. So what is financial behavior to you?
Yeah. So financial behavior is basically our relationship with money.
Mhm.
So when we have these thoughts or feelings or scripts around money, it was really important to figure out what our behavior is. So it's kind of like A to B scenario. And for a lot of us, the behavior could be everything from embracing money and really liking it to avoiding money and feeling really uncomfortable with it. So I'm glad we're having that conversation.
Yeah, me too. It's very important, how to learn how that can affect our mental state. A lot of us don't think that it does, but it really do
It
affect our
does.
mental state.
Mhm.
Um, so how would you say our financial behavior impact us mentally?
Yeah, I think it can be everything from making anxiety and depression worse, and just the sense of like maybe we're getting calls from creditors or we're feeling like we're buried under debt. Those things can really change our mental health. Everything from anxiety and depression to even suicidal thought of like, I'm never going to escape this, or I've put this burden on my family. So it
Mhm.
can be quite heavy from a mental health lens.
So I guess what are some things that drive our financial behavior? And then, you know, how can that help us in a positive way? And then how can that help us in a negative way?
Absolutely. So I think there are kind of two things I want to touch on with you. The first of which is those money scripts. So that's kind of like a category that we might fall into based on our behavior and the messaging we have with money. And then the other piece is messages we got from our families. So we'll start with scripts. There's four main scripts that people are kind of tracking right now. The first script, which is avoidant. So these are the folks that don't look at their bank account. Maybe they're ignoring calls because they're worried about creditors. Maybe they're getting those bills still in the mail and they're just throwing them into a drawer. So avoidant people have a message that is, I don't want to talk about money. So this person might also not ask for promotions or raises at work. If someone like a partner starts talking about a bill that's not paid, they might shut down or
Mhm.
have like a somatic experience of like nausea, upset stomach, starting to sweat, things like that. So a person with an avoidance script might have those kinds of responses because they don't want to talk about money, which is just one way this could be a problem. The second script would be worship, which is the person who thinks that having more money will make them happier,
Mhm.
right? So that's their message. So they might become a workaholic, they might spend their money lavishly on others to show love, but they're really just in that place of like, I want to work more, work hard, play hard. So
Mhm.
they're going to have that happen.
Mhm.
So some people are like, oh, that's me. Worship sounds like me, which I think as I've done more work around financial therapy, it's interesting to hear that happiness does not excel beyond like a $75,000 income.
Mhm.
So some people are like, I want six figures, but we know from the data that doesn't actually make us happier, which I thought was interesting.
Mhm.
The third script would be status. So this is usually a young adult, someone who's working really hard. Maybe they have name brand things or have certain things about their person that show that they've made money. Could be everything from a Rolex to a name brand bag.
Mhm.
So this is a person that takes pride in, I've worked really hard for this money. I want to show that publicly to other people. Again, mostly young adults. It kind of phases out into worship as we get older.
Mhm.
And then last but not least is vigilant as our fourth script. And that script would be the person who doesn't gamble, doesn't spend their money freely. They really struggle to spend it at all because they want to kind of hold on to it. And this person is more likely to feel guilt when they spend like on a car or a big purchase. So they might be excited in the moment, but then immediately feel guilt after making that purchase happen. And
Mhm.
so I have a couple people in my family who actually are like that. So I don't know if any of these relate to you in your experience, but I'm sure for your listeners, They can start kind of putting themselves into those 4 categories and seeing which one fits.
Yeah. Um, Now I do know, like I have run into a lot of people that like to worship. Basically, they're the worshipers, and
Mhm.
or the status they want to just show and prove what they have. And I'm just looking at them like, okay, all this doesn't mean anything if you're not financially stable like you need to be. If it's not. If you're not really seeing a return on investments, or if you're not really saving your money to build generational wealth, what's the point
Mhm.
of you doing all these things? So that's
Exactly.
kind of where my mindset is now, and I'm in my 30s. But I have met a couple of guys that are around the same age as me, and they're worshipers and their status, and they're about the status, and I'm just looking at them like you're, I was like, like I have some like that actually brag and boast about it, and I'm like, but you have so much of that you can pay off, but you don't pay it off. Like you have 3 or 4 car payments, you have a mortgage, and you're just blowing your money. Why? So,
Mm.
and that's just the type of mindset I have. Like, pay off your debt. Get your debt and income ratio down. Start investing in things that can bring you back residual income. And that's what my mind is. But yeah, I can definitely relate to the different statuses. Now, what you said the second thing was besides the statuses.
Yeah. So once we've kind of started with the status or the scripts, then we now look at the messaging we got from our childhood, which is pretty typical of mental health, right? So that's
Mhm.
where I'm really comfortable in that arena of like, what did our parents say or our caregivers? What did our first boss model for us? Those kinds of things. So even as I was hearing you say, like, this is where I'm coming from, like, hey, pay off your mortgage, or hey, pay off that car payment, that may have been a messaging or a message that you got when you were younger of like, be responsible with your money is one message. Maybe you received a message that money is to be borrowed, like going to college or higher education. Maybe you received a message that money isn't stable, so spend it while you have it.
Mhm.
A message I discovered for myself is money is to be celebrated like in birthday cards. So it was like always something like a grandparent would give us.
Mhm.
And so it was like that was an opportunity to say, this is our relationship to money. So people have the whole spectrum, everything from hold on to your money, it's not stable, to spend your money while you have it, and then the in between. So it could be all sorts of messages that we receive from our family and extended family.
All right. I think, well, the message that I kind of received was, and it's kind of funny because I told my dad the other day, I learned from their mistakes was to be more responsible when it comes to their money. If you can pay off a debt,
Mhm.
pay off a debt. And that's one reason why when I went to school for accounting and then, finance, because I wanted to know how to manage money well. I wanted to know the importance of it. I wanted to know, um, how I can make money work for me to where I won't have to work as hard like my parents did.
Right.
And you sometimes you can work hard, but it's not the smart way to work. So therefore, you're putting extra stress on your body that can cause other health issues that's not good for you. So I just wanted to really just learn those type of things, like the financial part, because I seen how devastated it was to my family in general when
Mm.
it comes to their finances and not being able to manage money and not being able to pay their bills. I didn't want to, I guess I wanted to be the one to break that generational curse. So I was like, okay, well, I'm good with numbers. Let me go to school and learn more about these numbers because that's what I was passionate about. I was always good in math in school. I just was a straight A student when it comes to math and statistics and
Nice.
everything else. So it was just like I just wanted to that was my passion to actually learn about it and being able to help people learn um the importance of money because it does. I have seen it where it has affects people's mental health. I have seen it where it has caused people to have nervous breakdowns and things of that nature because they didn't have that as a source
Mhm.
for to live a comfortable life and they live stressed out. So I get it.
Yeah, yeah, and it's so emotional, right? Like to your
Mhm,
point, it creates so many different behaviors, whether it's spending frivolously or
mhm,
hoarding our money like Scrooge. And I
mhm,
think it's interesting because you mentioned you're in your 30s, and so am I. And something I learned recently is we're part of that Disney generation, right? We were raised on Disney movies. There was the
mhm,
happily ever after, and something that blew my mind. I just want to share this with you and your listeners is that there was this relationship in Disney movies with the person with money being quote unquote bad,
Mhm.
right? So we think of Scrooge, he was the bad guy,
Mhm.
or a king or queen in a Cinderella movie, you know, they're the bad guys. And so for a lot of us in our 30s, not only do we have excruciating debt when it comes to like higher education, where we all have like a lot of college debt, but now we have maybe a message of like, oh, rich is bad. So maybe
Mhm.
now we're in no poverty, where we're not asking for what we're worth, or we're not following through on clients paying us for services or whatever it may be, because we're like, oh, I'm supposed to be a good person, and being
Mhm.
good is not being rich.
Mhm.
And that blew my mind, because I was
Mhm.
like, oh, here I am, a therapist working with people in poverty and people with lots of trauma,
Mhm.
and recognizing that that's a narrative I had to work through, of like, you can have money and pay your bills and have a good lifestyle and help others.
Yeah. So that leads to my next question. So what does healthy financial behavior should look like, or you think it should look like, so we can all kind of know or get an idea of what it should look like. So if they're not kind of there, we can kind of start working towards that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the first thing that I would encourage anyone to do is just start talking about money. I mean, in the American culture, we don't like to talk about it. So I love your podcast because you're like, let's talk about this.
Mhm.
Because for a lot of people, just talking about it makes them uncomfortable. Their shoulders go up to their ears, they start to sweat, they
Mhm.
feel self conscious. Maybe they go into a shame spiral where they all of a sudden go down low in their mood.
Mhm.
And so for a lot of us, it's just having conversations with our partners, our spouses, our family members. If we have children, are we modeling good things for them? So
Mhm.
I think that's a very first step, is just starting to get comfortable talking about money. And then for a lot of us, it's moving into like having spending plans and learning how to manage our money and get out of that cycle of debt where it's like credit card charge, pay off the credit card charge, pay off the credit card.
Mhm.
Like, there's some other strategies that we're learning to help people do this. And I'm sure you have even more strategies than I do.
Mhm.
From an emotional place, just getting comfortable talking about it would be
Mhm.
a first step.
Yeah. Yeah, I do. I run into a lot of people that are not really comfortable talking about money. And then I'm running into a couple of people who are like with me, since I'm comfortable talking about money and
Mhm.
talking about, different things to help better yourself, whether it's grants or crowdsource funding, some things of that nature when it comes to businesses. And pretty much it's just like I'm running into some people, they don't feel comfortable about it listening to me, or feeling um or try to make me feel bad because I'm trying to bring them a positive message when it comes to money, when it comes to finances, when it comes to doing different things to help better and improve your business. And
Right.
I'm like, okay, well, um kind of like struck by it because I never really experienced that. Normally I get people that are very open to it, but now I'm getting those people who are kind of resisting, and I'm like, okay, wow. So now it's kind of like, well, trying to figure out how can I communicate to them to where it's not so bad, so maybe they can be more open to it, because you know it might seem overwhelming at first, but then once you try to take the first steps, once you try to like get comfortable, like you said, about talking about money and actually
Mhm.
researching things for yourself, you see like, oh, okay, well, maybe it wasn't as big as I thought it was. So now that's where I'm at now, trying to pretty much try to figure out, okay, how can I find this median to where now I'm running into people who are not that very much comfortable talking about it. So
Right. I think that's really where I think financial therapy and then accounting or financial planners or all these other amazing professionals like yourself work so well together. Right. So maybe they come to me and they do their money story. And so they're looking at the shame and the doom and gloom and the generational debt and all of those things. And then they're going into strategy with you of like, how do I actually get myself out of debt?
yeah.
And so I see this beautiful bridge between the mental health side of it, of like, let's talk about it, and then getting them to a place where they can actually have those conversations and be open
Yeah.
versus reactory, of like, oh, I don't want to do this. Like,
Right.
this is freaking me out.
Mhm.
And I've been there. I mean, I've done that work and it was painful. Like, I did not want to talk about numbers. I didn't know how to ask for a promotion. Like, these were things I wasn't taught young in my career.
Yeah.
And now here I am teaching other people how to have a better relationship with their money.
Right. Right. And one of the recommendations I would definitely recommend to people is don't talk to other people that you know are not comfortable about money. Don't talk to
Right.
other people who are um irresponsible with money, because they're not going to give you soul sound advice, I should say. And I had learned that along the way, because I am more financially stable than like a lot of people in my family. So
Mhm.
they make me feel at times weird because of my standpoint when it comes to money. But then I had to sit back and think, I'm like, okay, well, um, maybe I shouldn't have said nothing to them because I'm more financially stable than they are, and I have more understanding of what and the importance of finances than they do. So and I've learned that helps me out now more to talk to people that are more financially stable, or the people that are financially in a financial place that I would like to be one day. So I'm learning to reach out to them and ask those people those type of questions of what they did to get to where they are. Because when you try to talk to someone that's not on the same financial level as you, or that is worse than what you're doing, or in a worse predicament than what you are, it's gonna kind of try to, it's almost kind of like it's setting you back instead of pushing you forward. And that's what I really had to learn on my journey when it comes to being an accounting, a financial advisor, to not talk to people that are struggling the same way you're struggling and they're not open to it or open to change, or talking to those that are basically in a worse condition than you are, so they're not going to be able to give you that sound advice that you need.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. I think that's why people are coming to you and eventually coming into financial therapy, because they're like, I just need some ideas. I need some strategies. I need to do the work. And you're absolutely right. Asking people who are already struggling, they might not have the same kind of insight or ideas for them.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Ms. Khara, for being on the show today. We're talking about financial behavior and how important it is to our mental health. So I'm going to share your social media handles. Tell our listeners how they can get in contact with you if they would like to render your services.
Awesome. That would be great. I look forward to connecting with them.
So tell us how we can get in contact with you if we would like to.
Yeah, so there's my Instagram handle there, and LinkedIn are two professional ways to reach me. There's going to be a website called financialtherapysolutions.com. That's going to be where a lot of us are coming together to make it easier for people to find financial therapists. So that website isn't quite live, but it's financialtherapysolutions.com. And with my unique spelling of my first name, hopefully they can find me through all the social media. So.
Awesome. And you guys make sure y'all look up Ms. Khara if you do need a financial counselor, because it's very important that to seek counseling when you need it, especially when it comes to finances, if you're struggling with it, especially if it's on a mental level. And if you guys want to get in contact with me, you can do so. My number is 910-317-0396. You can shoot me an email at contact@mjfinancial.biz. You can schedule a consultation on the website at www.mjfinancial.biz. You can find this episode on Anchor, you guys, and you can find this episode for the video playback on the YouTube channel for MJ Financial Management. So thank you once again, Ms. Khara, for being a guest on the show. I highly appreciate you today.
Thank you so much.
And all right, you guys, we will see you on the next episode of Tips with T.